Welcome to Mark D. Maker. My name's Mark Taylor, and today we're going to be looking at woodworking and wood carving tips, tricks, product knowledge. It's going to be rapid fire, so come on over to Workbench. Let's get started. All right, so let's start off with the drawing board. Now, that's where all projects usually began, and this drawing board was at Five Below, $5. Now, you couldn't buy the wood alone to make this for $5. So, really good deal. Now, it comes unfinished. As you can see, it comes unfinished. I simply used a can of shellac to give this surface a coat so it's nice and smooth now. So, if I'm drawing fine lines, I won't get any snags or bumps like that. I use just plain shellac, but if you want to use this for watercolor as well, use a polyurethane. It's basically like plastic covering waterproof. I also did a little notch right here, an extra notch to be able to lean it back like that, because that's the angle that I prefer to draw in. Now, with a drawing board, why do you need a drawing board? If you want to do straight lines, it is very helpful because there's your straight lines all the way across. It will speed up. If you're doing plans for a build or you want to do perspective or anything else like this, this will give you your nice straight horizontal lines. So $5 there, Amazon $7, and I got 2 of these. And for your vertical lines, I got these. These are called student triangles. $2.49, Hobby Lobby. These triangles, one's 45 and one's 30 degrees, and that gives you your vertical lines, and this has a French curve in the middle to help you get nice smooth curves. This one's got a protractor in the middle, and that's 90, and you flip it around, there's your 45s. So doing that will give you a real nice drawing board with the tools you need, super cheap. I might have forgotten to mention that this is called a T-square that goes with the drawing board. T-square. All right, let's take a quick look at erasers. Now, I like these erasers because they don't crumble as bad and they do a real nice job of cleaning up. Typically sold with architectural supplies. So people that do drafting, they'll use these and they work extremely well. We got a battery operated eraser. It has the white eraser, much like that one. About $10. I've seen them as cheap as like $5 and as expensive as like $15, $20. But it just spins around, and if you have a lot to erase, you can make quick work of it. These are really handy, especially if you have to erase a whole area. This is what's called a kneaded eraser. Now, kneaded erasers are clay-like. Let's get this open really quick and I'll show you. They're soft. When I was taking drawing classes, in college, that's when I started first using them. And you can go in, they don't make crumbs at all. They just clean up, and you can use a real soft touch. And these are just absolutely wonderful. And in drawing classes, we just used to play with these. Once you get them warm, you can really shape them into any kind of shape. We were doing charcoal, you can go in and do highlights with them. So you can put them in any shape you want. So to help you out with your drawing circles, freehand is very difficult to make them perfect. So if you want to get really precise circles, there's circle templates. They come in all different types, sizes. All the art stores and such sell these. I also have these, which are cookie cutters. And I just trace around them. Now, if you don't have any of this stuff, you can also use any glass that you have, your glasses, you can turn them upside down and trace around them. Soup cans, food cans. Another really handy thing to have is a clear flexible ruler, especially if you're a wood carver. You find the center and then wrap this around. Let's say you're doing a duck's head, and you can get that nice straight line to make sure that you have symmetry on both sides. When I buy these, I buy 5 or 6 at a time. Always have these handy. This is an LED light box. It's very thin. Turn it on. Comes up to full brightness. And if you want to trace something, so I have a Xerox copy here, you would lay that down on the glass, and you can cover it with another piece of paper and trace exactly what's on there. So if you don't have a copy machine at your house, you could just make your copy like that. Another way of doing this would be to take this up on a window that has bright light behind it. So outside, you're inside, you put this on the window, you tape this over, and then you trace using daylight coming from behind, so you can trace the image that you want like that. So I got this on Amazon, about $24. You can always do it through your window, but I do a lot of my work at night, and it's dark outside, and it doesn't work if it's dark outside. So that's why I have this.
Okay, so these are called character turnaround templates. Now you can get these, you can print it out on Pinterest, or you can make them yourself. So what these templates do is they help you line up things like the eyes, the nose, the ears, the shoulders, the hands. Professional cartoonists have used these for years, and they help line up everything so your front view and your profile have everything lines up properly. This will be a great help in helping you start to make your own patterns.
Here's a quick, easy one for the wood carvers. So these little hobby trays that you can buy at all the hobby stores, they have little hand holes in the side, and they're relatively inexpensive. They're pretty cheap. You can pick them up, and they go on sale a lot of times as well. Well, the wood chips tend to go through the sides of the holes and over the edge, and so I got this one with a little bit higher sides and taped the edges. I used carpet tape, and it worked pretty good, but they were still going over the side, so I got one and just took a 1/4-inch piece of wood and filled those holes on the side. I just held the piece of wood here, traced it, cut it out with the bandsaw, slid it in, glue it, a little bit of water-soluble wood putty, and sanded it. Same with the back here, and it makes for a real nice little wood tray, and I don't have to vacuum up nearly the amount of wood chips that I used to have to vacuum up. All right, let's talk about bandsaws for a little bit. Bandsaws, I hear people complain and say, oh, if I only had a bandsaw, I just can't afford it. Facebook Marketplace. All day long. You can buy a decent bandsaw for $50. If you're willing to put in some work, you might even get them free. Now, some of these are actually going to come down in price. Now, for a 14-inch with a stand, that's a good price. And this is every day. These prices are there. So, so I can go on all day long if you just are patient. When you go onto Facebook Marketplace and you look at the item that you're interested in, hit the little bell and turn it blue, and that'll show that you're interested in it. And
the reason why I'm showing you this
is
to dress bandsaw blades.
So if you just
bandsaw blades, when you get them, are sharp on the back, and as you make a curve, they'll cut notches.
And so I round them, and you can see where it's dug in a little bit. These are consumable, so they do wear out eventually. But I've had this for years. And I'll even, once I get it on that, I'll use a fine diamond and just kind of round over the back of the blade so the blade, when you're cutting a curve, goes smoothly. I'll even, when I'm done with that, use a strop on the back of the blade to polish it so the back of the blades are smooth. Now I'm going to refer setting up your bandsaw blade to Alex Snodgrass. The Wood Whisperer has an excellent video. Good video, good sound, good quality shots. And Alex Snodgrass will take you through all the setups. Your bandsaw will be perfect. Now this is my bandsaw. This was an expensive one, but a really good, reliable, and it cuts as straight as can be. Great saw. This is the saw I started off with and have been using for many years. And I have a 1/8 inch blade on there. And we've seen this on Facebook Marketplace, $50. So great saw. This is called a stabilizer. This piece right here is called Stabilizer by Craig. That was actually about $70, but then you get rid of the guides on the top and the bottom, and the stabilizer will help you make like jigsaw cuts. Incredibly fine work with this. I almost forgot. Saw blade lubricant. This is a wax, and you simply run your saw blade and stick this right on it. Just takes a second. It doesn't take long, and it lubricates the blade so it runs more smoothly. I got this particular one at Woodcraft. Another way to lubricate your saw blades is to wrap your piece of wood in packing tape. Packing tape is a petroleum product, and so it has oils in it, and it will also help lubricate your blade. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that are on the table here. We'll start off with the wood filler. This is a water-based wood filler. Works great for doing repairs on wood carvings and anything else, wood construction. This particular stuff has a pink dye in it that will, a little hard opening this thing with my thumb injury, but we'll get it. Here we go. So kind of looks like this. You want to kind of mix it up a little bit when you get it, and it puts that pink dye back in. This is water soluble. Now there is a plastic wood that is acetone soluble. I don't buy that anymore. Working with the acetone can be dangerous for your lungs. I've had issues with it, so I no longer have it. If you do buy the acetone-based wood putty, plastic wood, it's acetone-based, so to thin it, you would use acetone, and to retard the drying, to slow down the drying, you would add mineral oil. So this has a pink hue to it already. It's starting to change color as it's drying. It dries pretty quick. Not as quick as the acetone. The acetone stuff dries extremely fast. With this, it's as thick as it is out of the jar, but as you use it, it will dry. So it gets thicker and thicker the less that's in it. You can add water to it and thin it out and make it as thin as you want. It's still pliable for a while. You can do different things to it. I was using this to set eyes in carvings, set glass eyes into them. I now use the Magic Sculpt, which is a 2-part epoxy. But this is good stuff. I use it for a lot of repairs. You can literally put it on your finger and smear it across the wood if you're not going to stain it. If you're going to stain it, this dries at a different density than the wood does, so the stain won't match. So then you would have to go back in with paint to try to match it. If you're going to paint the carving to where it's not stained, this will work nicely. Now this is an acrylic modeling paste. This is interesting stuff. I found this not all that long ago. And what this is, it's acrylic, much like your acrylic paint base is. It's very creamy, very smooth, and you can use it for texture on things. But you can also go through and create things. You can make beautiful feathers with this stuff. You carve your feather, spread that on there, and then use a needle tool to create all the detail of the feather. And then when you paint it, you can't even tell it. It looks like wood. So it's modeling paste. It's new. I like it. It's cool. This is much of the same. This was gifted to me. And this actually has a grain to it. It has, you'll be able to hear it when I wipe it on here. Hear that? It actually has texture in it. I'm not sure what they use for texture, but it's interesting stuff. I haven't played with it much. It's new to me. So we'll see what happens with that down the road. This stuff I've used for years. Water putty. And water putty is a powder. Let's see if I have something that I can open this can with. It is a powder, and I use it for my landscapes when I'm doing a carving. It looks just like, ooh, look at that. It looks just like flour. It's a little bit yellow. So this powder, you mix it with water, and it is the base for a lot of my carvings. As a matter of fact, this carving right here, I'm bringing it to the camera, the base of this red-tailed hawk, this is just insulation foam with water putty on top of it, and I put it on with a palette knife. I just smeared the water putty on there. It dries hard as a rock. I mean, that stuff, but it's lightweight. You can sand it, paint it. You can take a brown paper bag and put like a cup or two of this stuff in it and drop some water into it and then shake the bag. You just fold it up and shake the bag and then scoop out the hard parts, and they will look like river rock. You can make them as big or as small as you want for your bases, for your carvings and models. Really cool. And you can take just slightly tinted paint, just some water with just a little bit of, let's say, burnt umber, and put a coat on there, and it goes into the cracks, and it looks like a real rock. It's really, you can get some really cool effects with that. I've even put this down, and as it's almost dry, sprinkle the dry particles on top of it, and it gives it a sandy look. So if you're doing scenes, dioramas, habitat for your carvings, that water putty is worth getting. It's not expensive. It's pretty cheap. You can get it at most hardware stores, and it's been around for a long time. Water putty. Bondo. Bondo is used in the car industry, but this is an all-purpose, so you can use it for just about anything. The all-purpose works with wood, or actually both of them do. It's kind of like a two-part epoxy. You mix it. You have a hardener cream, and it mixes with the putty, and it starts to have a chemical reaction. It heats up. When it heats up, it starts to get harder and harder, but it's gradual. And when it's in the firm stage, so when you can take it and you can feel that it's starting to set, but it still has some give, you take one of these, it's kind of like a cheese grater tool, and you can really shape it. So you can, I've done some signs for some friends with some, that has some undulating curves to it. And instead of just spending all the time with wood, I used Bondo and sculpted it with this. And you can get some really nice permanent effects with that. That stuff will stick to just about anything for forever. So our Magic Sculpt. Now I use this whenever I'm doing setting eyes. You take the same 50-50, 50% of this, 50% of this, mix it together, and you have a wonderful way to set eyes, to do repairs, or to make handles for tools. It is so versatile. This is great stuff. You can actually do sculpture with this. When it is fully dry and set, it is hard as a rock. It is another permanent substance once it sets. It's water soluble, which I love. The Bondo is not water soluble, so once it's there, it's there. There's really no thinning that down. Water putty, you can thin it with water. This stuff you can thin it with water. This stuff you can thin it with water, and that's what I prefer. The plastic wood that is acetone base, you have to use acetone to thin it, and it's just more difficult to use, and it dries super quick. Really hard to work with. The Magic Sculpt comes in all different sizes. You can get it on Amazon. I got mine from a sculpture supply house in New York. Here's a good example of the plastic wood in use. I took out too much here. It gouged a little here. So I went in with it, and then sanding it, super easy. You just have to use a light touch when you're sanding it. And then, the beak also. This I took off too much, and I had to add a little bit of plastic wood to that. But once I shape it, and it shapes extremely easy, I'll prime it and paint it. So here's the feather that I carved. Just a piece of basswood, thin basswood, and modeling paste on this side, and with a little needle tool, just scraped across it. Once it had a coat of modeling paste on it, and it makes for a really nice textured feather, and hardly any time on it compared to burning each vein into it. This is a good example of the modeling paste. So this is just a cardboard mock-up that I did of a building, and put modeling paste on the side of the cardboard. You can see just a little cardboard box. I didn't even change the shape of it. Here's what the textured looks like when it's dried. You can see the texture there is just experimenting. You can go in and scratch things into it, but if you don't want it to look like pristine, I went in and made it kind of stucco-ish. I'm going to primer gray this and make it look like an old rundown building. So the toes here, these are two-part epoxy. Those are Magic Sculpt, and the eyes were set with Magic Sculpt. So it is just so nice to use, and if you wanted to thin that out and add, let's say you wanted to add this as an after fact, you could go in there and add it, put detail in it before it dries, and just so handy to have. And when I do use Magic Sculpt, I give it overnight to dry. Next day, it's like a rock. Well, that's it for part one. I feel like I've just scratched the surface. So I'll be back with more editions of this, and I hope you've learned something. I hope you'll learn more from the next one, and I'll see you next time.